Hello, friends. Welcome back. On the way into my office this morning, I had two voice memos and three texts, all from women between the ages of 35 and 50, asking me what I know about basically anything having to do with early menopause signs and symptoms and what my road of trial and error and personal and professional discovery has revealed about the way we can best support ourselves through this inevitable midlife transition. So on the way home from dropping off my son at school, I was sending detailed voice messages and then pinging them off to women that I love, women that I respect personally and professionally. And it got me so fired up to come in and record this podcast episode on the signs of early menopause. I started going through early menopause right around my 40th year, like to the day. And I was the first one in my friend group to start going through this midlife transition. And that was about 5 years ago. And in the last 5 years, so much conversation has entered the kind of forum of the wellness space. But 5 years ago, there was really very little information available about this transition. So it took me 2 years of kind of increasing struggles and difficulty to finally learn and piece together what was happening in my brain and body. And now I am on a mission to help other women look out for these signs and then to know exactly how to support yourself when your body starts to show you that it is entering into and crossing into a new era. And if you understand the signs and then you know how you're going to help yourself when they emerge for you, then this new era doesn't have to be one of suffering or decline. It can be one of stepping into a new way of being with yourself, refreshing and updating ways of supporting your mental and physical health, which have probably been neglected for good reason until this point. You have been busy having children and nurturing a career and doing your best to keep all things together, all the balls in the air. And when your body starts to show you that it's ready for something new, it's usually kind of right on time for your soul's longing for something new as well. So if you read any perimenopause book, you will see that there is like a list of like 50 different possible symptoms associated with perimenopause. And that's because so many organ systems and pretty much every aspect of your brain and body are influenced by changes in estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. And so it can be quite an overwhelming and comprehensive list. I think those lists are most helpful to validate if you have been meeting with multiple providers trying to get to the bottom of X, Y, or Z, energy issue, anxiety issue, metabolic issue, weird skin issue, and nothing has quite come to the surface, letting you know that there is a different health condition co-occurring. It is most likely your hormones. It is most likely part of your body's unique expression of the changes that it's undergoing. And it gives you clues to how you can most powerfully support your body and your brain in this transition. The most common signs, drum roll please, brrr, for the most common signs out of that crazy long, like 50 item list are actually whittled down. The first is brain fog and difficulty concentrating. Ladies, this one is going to get a whole podcast episode on its own because it is one of my number one signs of hormonal change in my perimenopause journey. So brain fog and difficulty concentrating can feel like your brain is just like a wet, heavy, dense icky, sticky, like cotton web. It feels like either you can't do the same things cognitively that you're used to. Like if you're used to doing complex cognitive tasks, leading a team, breaking down complex projects, making it actionable along a timeline, speaking, teaching, bringing important ideas and being quite fluent in those ideas and articulate in the way that you're expressing them. If any part of that process feels slower or more labored or just not happening the way that it used to happen, that is brain fog. The other, the or, and secret, maybe you have both like me, but the or can be that you start losing track of your words or you are stopping mid sentence. It's kind of like your brain just malfunctions and goes blank. So you're trying to say the word for toothbrush, but you can't. And you're driving your family absolutely crazy by saying, has anyone seen my, and then you can't get it out. And then you're like the thing for the thing on your face. And they're like, what are you talking about? Because you can't remember toothbrush or the word teeth. And so you're like, no, that thing to clean the inside of your mouth, on your face. And they're like, toothbrush? And you're like, yes, that, that thing. So you either lose the word or you're mid sentence in a story, or you're asking your partner for help with something, and mid sentence, it's just like the sentence just drops off and it evaporates and it's gone. And either you don't remember even what you were going to say, or you're just having a hard time, like your brain is in a slower lag. It's like your brain is, well, all mom's brains are like fast forward into time. So you are already thinking like 20 steps ahead of everybody around you, and you're just trying to catch everybody up to your brain in the present moment. But then brain fog makes it so that you lose track of where you were at, either in your head, 20 steps ahead, or actually in the present moment. I'm wondering if any of you are falling out of your chair laughing, being like, that is me. I'm losing my words. My sentences are just dropping off. My kiddo is looking at me with even more like, Mom, you're so crazy. And my husband or your partner is trying to be super kind, but it's kind of tiring being with someone whose brain malfunctions just at random. And I find this one to be super important to support for midlife women, because it is at this point, as you enter into your late 30s and then enter that 40th decade, from 40 to 50 is going to be some of the time that you do some of your most compelling and important work in the world. You are raising kids from toddlerhood through teenage years. You're also trying to nurture a relationship, either find a new one and experiment with that part of your life, or keep the one you're in healthy and connected. That is such important work. And then your work in the world, whether that is paid work or volunteer work, you have never been more capable, more wise, and have greater compassionate and strategic creativity than you have ever had for the work in the world that you're doing. So your life needs you, and you need you to be using your mind and all of your ideas and starting to plant the seeds to let it come forward into fruition. So difficult to kind of have that confidence in yourself and kind of maintain that command or authority within, that you have something to offer and something important to contribute to your home life, to your personal life, and to your work in the world. So hard when your brain isn't working in the same way that it used to, and you're forgetting things. If it's not written down, you're losing your words, or you're getting stuck mid sentence. So brain fog, difficulty concentrating, number one sign of early perimenopause. The second most common sign is that your sleep is starting to get interrupted. And this one can be tricky to identify if you are going through early perimenopause at the same time that you have young children. When you have young children, it's really common to have sleep disruption, either because of like nighttime wake ups, or nightmares, or bathroom help, or if your young children are getting sick and they need you during the night. There's so many like reasons why any parent's sleep is interrupted when you have young children. So this can be a little bit of a sneak attack where you are attributing the sleep interruption to just the normal wear and tear of being a parent, and it's actually hormonally driven. So, especially your kiddo might be waking you up, or your partner or something in your environment might be waking you up. And just like little insider info that the hormone changes in early perimenopause make your brain and body much more sensitive to things that it usually took in stride. So much more sensitive to heat, to like texture, to sounds. And so you might be getting some sleep disruption where you would normally sleep right through your partner's rolling over, or their heavy breathing, or maybe sounds in your environment. And now you're much more of a sensitive sleeper, needing cooler temperatures, darker rooms, quieter environments, and have much more difficulty falling back asleep if you're woken up by said children in your home. So the most common sleep disruption has to do with early wake ups or difficulty falling asleep. So let's start with the early wake ups, because that I think seems to be what most women experience as the first sign. It's kind of between 2:30 and 4:30 in the morning that I'm hearing most women saying, kind of out of nowhere, not always associated with their environment or somebody else in their environment. They're waking up during that window of time and having a lot of difficulty falling back asleep. And then if you're a parent, especially a working parent, I mean, you're up at 6 anyway with your kiddos and getting ready and out the door. So you're awake kind of like 2.5 to 3 hours earlier than you probably would like to be. And there's a lot of information in the health world about why you might have those types of wake ups, like adrenal function and other things that have definitely some merit. But when I'm speaking to a woman and she's between the ages of 35 and 50, and kind of out of nowhere for her, she's starting to have that wake up in that window of time, and or she's having difficulty falling asleep when it used to be easy to fall asleep for her, and or when you're getting woken up by your family and then you could be awake for like 2 to 3 hours before you fall asleep again. The first place I'm going these days is to hormone support, nowhere else. And that is so important because I think women spend a ton of time like researching things, trying supplements, trying as many sleep aids as they can, and then also blaming themselves for not managing their stress well enough. That's another one that I see, that that you have stress and you're not managing it enough. Well, yeah, of course, like you're a woman, you're a working woman, you have children, like yes, you have stress. The difference is you feel like you can't handle that stress in the same way as you used to, which is just say like common sign number 3. But let me go back to go forward. That blame, like knowing you're not managing your stress as well as you used to, can be an easy self blame for that sleep interruption. But really, even if you manage your stress beautifully, you will likely still experience sleep disruption unless you adjust your strategy to be hormonally relevant to help with that sleep cycle. So, moving forward to number 3, as I just forecasted, stress feels harder to manage. This one is so easy to blame on the difficulties and rigors of raising kids, whether they're toddlers through middle childhood or teens or tweens. And it's also easy to blame on work. Like most women in this age group are stepping into leadership roles, creating new offerings, challenging themselves to take on new tasks or grow in their skill sets, or they get promoted, or they start new businesses. Like there's so much opportunity for growing identity at work to be a culprit of stress and therefore be what we blame our difficulty managing our stress around. But there's one thing I think is helpful to get clear on is in this age range, there may be multiple stressors like raising a family, taking care of aging parents, moving up in work responsibilities or roles, doing hard work to care for important relationships in your life, health changes or body changes like perimenopause. All of these things are stressors. And the problem isn't the stressors themselves. It's that we need a new kind of navigational operating system in midlife to help manage or work through those stressors. And big hormonal fluctuations and steady decline in hormones only exacerbate the felt experience of stress in our mind and bodies. Okay, so let's review. Number one, brain fog and difficulty concentrating. Number two, sleep starting to get interrupted. Number three, stress feels harder to manage. And then number four is that PMS starts to turn up the volume. So some women in early menopause do start to experience changes in their periods themselves. But I think it's more common a sign of like mid to late perimenopause. The early perimenopause indicator around your cycle has to do with the PMS. So the period before you menstruate, whatever your signs or symptoms were, whether they be psychological or energy related or physical, the volume tends to turn up. So more emotional, more volatile, more agitated, more cramping, more bloating, more diarrhea or constipation, lower energy, kind of like difficulty getting that get up and go kind of feeling, whatever your PMS symptoms were prior to early perimenopause, think about those again, the volume turning up or the list getting added to. So sometimes it's happening at the same severity of intensity, but just more things are coming to play. And a little side note, this is maybe a little more detailed, but some women in their cycle get less PMS signs and more signs when they're ovulating. Signs meaning that you're feeling off, either mentally, psychologically, or physically. So if you didn't get PMS, but you do get some kind of ovulation disruption, then you're going to look at that window for the volume getting turned up. I find that many women never really tracked their cycles, myself included, prior to the project of wanting to become pregnant. And so once we want to become pregnant, we're usually downloading the apps or starting to learn about our ovulation cycles and menstruation cycle. And I think that postpartum is a wonderful time to start to get more acquainted with your body's signs, that it's in different phases and stages of the menstrual cycle. And I usually help women track this in my counseling office based off of their kind of mental health signs and what they notice about mood or energy or distress tolerance. It usually changes around ovulation and or menstruation. So it might be a good time to start just to kind of loosely track your cycle. And if you're like me and you have an IUD, you need to learn how to know when you are menstruating, even though you don't bleed. So a wonderful opportunity in perimenopause to get to know your body even more intimately. That way you can associate mood disruption or kind of feeling kind of thin and sensitive or feeling more irritable and agitated or kind of peaks and valleys of energy. You can depersonalize it a little bit from kind of who you are as a person and make it more specific to what your body is going through and seeing how the natural cycle of ovulation and menstruation on its own is going to impact your mood. And then let's layer on perimenopause, where hormones are fluctuating and evolving and declining. It's just going to exacerbate whatever you experience and kind of highlight or heighten whatever you experience in a normal cycle. Okay, the fifth one and last most common sign that perimenopause has arrived on the scene is that anxiety crops up where it wasn't before, or it worsens. And the things that you used to do to manage your anxiety no longer work very well. For me, this showed up right alongside brain fog and insomnia. So I attributed some of the anxiety symptoms I was having to not sleeping and to like feeling so flustered with this brain fog, which those things didn't help. Those things magnified it. But for me, the thing that I had never experienced before until early perimenopause was indecision. So I have always been kind of a highly decisive person. It's been easy for me to see the big picture of a situation, kind of decide which path I want to take, and then move in that direction. That has been a process that traditionally has been easy for me. And then as soon as early perimenopause arrived onto the scene, I started belaboring and overthinking my decisions. I stopped like trusting myself. Like I couldn't locate inside of myself something that felt like, yes, this is what I want. Yes, this is me. Yes, this isn't a perfect choice, but it's the one that makes sense in the moment. I used to be able to do that. And then when my body and brain started changing, that was much more difficult to locate within myself. So when I see things on social media about overthinking and indecisiveness, and it's kind of targeted toward someone like me, a woman in midlife or for women nearing midlife. I think that one of the things that's not being talked about is that that might not change unless there's a hormonally relevant intervention put onto the table. And I am no longer in early perimenopause. I'm much more in the mid to late stage, but it's still one of my number one signs that my body needs additional support hormonally. It'll show up for me first in sleep, second in brain fog, and then third in indecisiveness. I feel an anxiety that's unfamiliar to me about the choices and not knowing what the right choice is and feeling like there is a choice that I need to make and I just can't find it. When my hormones are supported, that whole kind of painful process quiets down and it's much easier to locate the me underneath all the decision making and demands for my attention. And in early menopause, it might be that one of these things comes to the scene first, and so it can be harder to identify. But as your body goes through this transition, you'll start to see more and more of things like this starting to change. And my wish and hope for you is that you don't blame yourself and your lack of self-care or lack of doing something you should have done. And you don't blame your environment. Like once we get into this age, or once we get to summer, or once we get to that vacation, or once we get back into our routine, then I'm going to feel like myself again. I think that we can waste a lot of time in blaming ourselves and overly attributing our environmental stressors to this sometimes private and real experience that you either are going through or will be going through in the next months or years on the inside. So I have 3 tips to help you manage this transition, and they're super simple, but represent a journey unfolding in front of you. The first is what you've taken the time, if you're still listening, to do today, which is to know what to look for as signs of early perimenopause. And adjacent to that is I'd like for you to start now gathering helpful thought leaders to help inform your journey. My friend, I would be honored if I were included in one of them as one of those thought leaders. But find your thought leaders. I'll link some of mine below, women that I've been researching right alongside and learning from, and kind of taking in all the thought leadership they're putting into this space. But find your tribe. Start to find some healthcare providers and thought leaders that are going to kind of orient you to what's happening, validate your experience, and give practical advice about how to move through the stage. And just like a little side note, be careful that the people that you're getting information with aren't just influencers that do a really good job like communicating, but they're actually women who have put in the time and expertise to know their niche, know their scope of practice, and can really add some grounded, practical advice. The second tip I recommend for you as you're entering into this new era is to commit to gathering a new stress management toolkit. Midlife requires new and more effective ways to care for your body, tend to your mind, connect with the soul or the spark within. And it requires different healthcare practices than you've been used to working and being right for you in the past. So, of course, stick with me. I will over time give you as many of those strategies as I can, or like better yet, can I collapse time for you? Can you jump into the collective and I'll give you all of my healthcare frameworks and emotional fluency tools? Let's get your ability to relate to your stressors not only back on track, but like evolving and maturing and up leveling, growing. And then the third thing that I cannot recommend highly enough is to educate yourself on menopausal hormone therapy. There are so many preventative as you age benefits to bringing estrogen into your body early, not waiting postmenopausal, but actually in perimenopause. There's some wonderful health outcomes if you bring it in early to prevent and to support your brain health, your cardiovascular health, and your metabolic health. So it can be a wonderful kind of aging gracefully tool in your toolbox, but also it very well may be one of your most powerful levers to pull as you're trying to support any of those 5 symptoms. I am living proof that the brain fog, the sleep, the stress and anxiety, all of those things as well. For me, it's not so much PMS, but the women that I know that have started menopausal hormone therapy have experienced significant relief in their symptoms. I can't recommend highly enough, especially for women who consider themselves to be a little bit more naturally oriented or holistically oriented, that prefer to see aging as a natural part of the human process. I am like one of your people, and I think that it is truly progressive and integrative healthcare to include the tool of hormone replacement in a graceful and an empowered journey into supporting your health and well-being in a truly holistic way as we move into midlife. Let me know if you want to in the comments below which of those top 5 symptoms you think might be your signs of early perimenopause, and let me know what's helped in the comments below. And I hope that you'll join me in making a commitment to yourself to not let suffering and inaction and like dreading this midlife transition be the soundtrack to your story. Done with normalize mother suffering, done with normalizing women's health being unsupported. We're done with that. You're too wise and beautiful and mature to settle for anything less than growing, knowing yourself better, and truly finding vibrant health and emotional well being in this stage of life. I'm so glad we're on this journey together and can't wait to see you next time.